Welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. In this podcast, we explore how nature, science, education, and culture can benefit all children and future generations. This is a show for educators, parents, mentors, and anyone interested in making the lives of our children, families, and communities better. So sit back, take a breath, and enjoy the show. And now for your host, Asher Cloran.
Well, g'day everyone. Welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. I'm here with Tyler Wofle. He is a trainer who loves helping men, especially men, 25 to 55, get jacked and improve their athleticism and move towards being more holistic and approaching life in a sustainable way that's easy to execute. And I've seen Tyler doing awesome things on Instagram and just really noticed that he's someone who's living and breathing principles of holistic life and training. And his approach to training and movement is fun and playful and inspiring. And I thought, hey, let's get him on the show to chat about how to think about movement, how to think about training, how to think about our own form of athleticism, not just as men, younger boys, but we are going to touch on those subjects, but as people in general who need to stay connected to their body so that they can live a happy and healthy life and provide for their family and all those things. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how you got into your journey with health and movement and what inspired you to get there?
Yeah, I always start the story with this because I remember I was in grade 11 and I got called down to the guidance counselor's office, and the guidance counselor sat me down and said, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And I remember my answer to that was, "I don't even know what I'm doing when I get home from school." I was like, do my friends have answers to this question? I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And it really stuck with me. I was like super puzzled, and I'm sitting there and I had to give an answer. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll be a firefighter. I don't know. So anyways, like I went, they're like, okay, you should do some pre-med, become a paramedic, then you can do a firefighter, whatever. And I was like, okay, sure. So I did that. I got turned down from one college. I got accepted to another. And me, my mom, and my dad at the time, we went and looked at the school, and I walked through the school. I did the tour, and I got back in the car, and I just said to my parents, I said, if I go to school, I'm going to waste all of the money you guys have saved for this, because I could just tell. I was in the dorm rooms. I was like, I'm just going to party this all the way. I can't go. I don't feel like it's right. And my mom said to me, she said, okay, that's fine, but you have to have a plan because you can't just be a bum in my basement.
Yeah.
I was like,
how old are you at that age?
What's that?
Like 16, 17?
No, it would have been 18.
Yep.
Yeah, 17, 18. Yeah, somewhere around there. And which was no problem because I've always had spunk. I can't sit still. It's probably like undiagnosed AD or ADHD.
Yeah.
And so my mom said, okay, you got to have a plan. I said, no problem. And I started to think in my last year, I was like typical grade 12, like, how can I make this last year as easy as possible? So I was looking for co-op placements, and I'm not sure if they have that in Australia. Do they have co-op stuff?
Yeah, it's work placement.
Okay, yeah. So like that. And I was thinking, okay, this is cool. I can spend a whole morning or a whole afternoon at a place of my choice. Sweet. And at the time, I think starting in grade 10, I had been going to the gym 5 days a week. And so I was like, all right, let's go to the gym. I know everybody there. I knew the people at the desk, whatever. And I started doing co-op placement at the gym. And I had never read a full book until I got out of high school. And I never read anything. I would talk to someone in class who could help me write summaries on books. Like I just wasn't into it.
Yeah.
And anyways, I got onto this co-op and I was the front desk guy. So I would greet people through the door and
Yeah.
whatever. And there was this website called T Nation or Testosterone Nation.
I know the one.
Yeah. And I remember I brought a men's health magazine. There was this one guy, two guys in the gym, and I don't know what it was. I was like grade 11 and I was looking around and I'm just like, okay, something tells me these two guys know what they're doing because it's totally different than the rest of the people there. So I started bugging them, picking their brains, whatever. And I brought a men's health magazine in one day and I said, hey, his name was Brent. And I was like, Brent, what do you think about this? And he's like, that's Firestarter. If you want to learn real workouts, go read up this guy on this website. And the guy was Charles Poliquin. And that's who I started with. So he had 43 articles on T Nation, and I read every single one of them. My manager at the time would laugh at me because she said, we hired you to read, which eventually paid off for them because that's where I found out, like, I started to see the possibility of I could be a trainer and I could make it a career. So sure enough, Brent, the guy that told me the men's health magazine was Firestarter, he became the fitness manager, and who better to hire than the guy that everything I knew was what he taught me. So he hired me and I started training. I worked at McDonald's for a year, and that's the only other job that I've ever had. I helped my dad out with a family business for a little bit when I was really young, but I ended up just spending time in the fireplace showroom doing bicep curls with the weights. And then I worked at McDonald's for a year, and then I started training, and I've never looked back, never done anything else. And then that was 11 years ago. So there's a lot that's happened since then too.
All right, man. That's a really awesome path. So direct. And it shows you how people get swept up in their careers because of family, because of a teacher, or because of a mentor. So you had all three elements in there giving you a nudge from some department or another. Yeah. And it's who actually came through with the goods was this guy Brett was it Brent?
Brent, yeah.
Brent at the gym with the whole fire starter gag.
That's right.
You're a young man, come and see, looking around you, who's got what it is that I want or desire. And you had the wherewithal to reach out, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yep.
Have you noticed that element of mentorship and tried to pay it forward in your own work? And have you started to notice how that you've become that figure for others?
I think it's a funny thing because you don't realize it. You don't realize you are. Like, I even remember one time I was at a couple, like maybe 2 years ago, I was at my local, like my home gym back where I grew up, and Brent was there. I seen him and I could tell he was just having an off day. I don't know what it was. And we started chatting, and I don't know why, but I just felt the need to give him a little boost. I just said, I just want to thank you because you are the reason why, like, this has all happened. If I didn't get exposed to the stuff that I did, and I didn't just let my guard down and learn from you, I don't really know if I would be here. And you could see it. He didn't even know, like, he had no clue. And I think that's probably where I'm at as well. I'm sure, like, people follow me on Instagram, people will say to me like, oh man, I watch your stuff all the time or whatever. But I don't really see myself in that light as I strive to be. I would love if somebody says, oh man, I've been following you, you're a good role model. That would make me really happy. But I don't necessarily see myself in that light. But even prior to before we hit the record button, I told you, I was like, that is something that I strive to be. That's one of the big motivators in my self-development, when my emotions get the best of me, to just be disciplined and take action. And that's really the big motivator, is because one day I want to have kids, and one day I want to be a positive example for them. And even just the people around me and the men around me. And so it's my intention, but I wouldn't say I see myself as like I'm a positive role model for a lot of people. I strive to be the best I can, and I hope that's a positive role model.
Yeah, no, I reckon it is, man. And Let's unpack it though a little bit. Like, what's your definition of a positive role model, and why do you see that young men out there need that?
I speak mostly to men, and that, to be honest, is relatively new because up until, to be honest, very recent, men my age were actually the only demographic of people that I had not worked with. In my career, I worked with a lot of women, a lot of elderly people,
Yep.
but no men. Like, really not many men. If I was to slice it up in a pie, I would say it was like 60 to 70% women, 20 to 20% like elderly people. Like, I'm talking like people in their 70s and 80s.
Yep.
And like 10% men. And I've just recently come to the conclusion about why that is. And to answer your question, I think that when it comes to being a positive role model as a male, you really have to address the whole, whatever philosophy or ideology resonates with you, you've got to address the fact that everything is on a continuum. So whether you look at it as like the yin and the yang, or the masculine and the feminine, or the anima and the animus, however you choose to look at it, you have to address it. And I think that the best, for me, the things that I can do to be the best positive role model on my future kids, the people around me, the men in my life, the people watching, is to really exhibit two sides of what I think it takes to be a positive role model as a male. And one of those sides is definitely someone who has a very strong presence and has a very reassuring presence. If all hell breaks loose, I want to hide behind that guy. I want to stand behind that guy. I want to be on that guy's team, because there's something about that guy that says he can keep his emotions in check. He can, when shit goes south, he can stay focused. When push comes to shove, he's going to overcome adversity. He's going to stay calm. He's going to be relaxed. And he's also a force to be reckoned with. You can tell. But on the other side, that can be abused, because you can be a very tough, dominant male, but you can abuse that. And I think when the world thinks of a tough, powerful man, I sometimes get the feeling that's the only side that they think about. And they're looking at the tough, powerful men that are physically tough and powerful. But what they're failing to see is that in a lot of times, that is a compensation for a little boy that's very hurt, very insecure, doesn't know how to project himself, doesn't have a sense of self, doesn't live by a code. And yes, it looks like this person is an alpha male, very strong, very confident, but that's only one side of the coin. And my objective is to have that dominance, for sure. I don't have any shame in saying that. Like, when I walk into a room, I want people to know that this guy he could potentially be a force to be reckoned with, and he's got his shit together. And there's something about his presence that just says, I respect him. But in order to really exhibit that, and in order to really have that, you have to have the other side. And that other side is the yin energy, or the feminine energy, or the emotion, like the emotional intelligence, or the comfort to be comfortable with being vulnerable, or to be gentle when you need to be gentle, be a good listener. Let people make mistakes, and don't get mad, don't get snappy, don't use force to try and make everyone do what you want them to do. And I think, in my opinion, that is the optimal male. And I think the more men that we have who do intentionally struggle every day so that they can be the strongest, you don't need to be a massive guy who can squat 7 plates that's not what I'm saying, but it's a presence thing. And I think that if men and younger guys who are growing up can strive to see that training is important. We don't have a battlefield anymore unless you're in the military or you play like contact sport or something, if you're not doing that, like you got to be training, because that's the way you get it. And so
Yeah.
you got to have that, but you also have to have the other side. And that's 100% my goal, is to just be very well rounded in both of those and know when to apply each of those strategies.
Yeah, it's really good. And a principle in martial arts comes to mind, which is like supple. It's not rigid, so rigid that it's tense, which you get a lot from, say, like the bodybuilder crowd, or people who are just like 100% focused on being a tough guy. They're actually got a brittleness about them. There's a fragility about them because they're not flexible. They can't maybe listen to other opinions without getting riled up. They need those modes of aggression in order to express themselves, but in other contexts aren't going to be comfortable, or aren't going to be receptive, or aren't able to compromise. And then that's a weakness really in them. But
Yeah.
having that adaptability and change, and children are very good indicators of that presence. If you're not listening and you're not present and attentive, they're just going to walk off or not really want to be around you. And you might think, oh, I'm saying all the right things, or I'm like giving all the right information, or I'm just presenting the class like more in the masculine teacher on the stage kind of vibe. But if you're not sensitive to their thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, then you can't relate. You can't keep that connection going, and you get lost in your own world. What are some of the masculine figures that have represented those halves to you and inspired you to take that approach to life?
Yeah, I think I've had a few. And one thing that I feel like I've done a pretty good job of is understanding that you don't really, I should say, I don't really need one person to be this perfect representation of what I think a strong male is, that I want to have as a role model. I take the idea that, like, you can take parts, you can see parts of people that you're like, I really like that. And then you apply that to yourself, because at the end of the day, we all have extremely different circumstances. We have very different upbringings. It's way too much to all it is. We develop strategies to just navigate through life in a way that makes us feel safe and comfortable, and helps us fit into our environment. And even these types of conversations that we're having right now, I'm not really sure that when my dad grew up, he was having those types of conversations, because like my dad grew up in a town of 1,500 people, and it's just different, right? So there's elements of my father for sure that I hold very dear to my heart, and I'm so grateful that I got to experience those. And then there's other elements that I'm like, those aren't going to be traits that I'm going to carry forward. And then, like with Brent we were talking about earlier, there's definitely elements of him. And then when I started down my training career, seeing for a while, it was Charles Poliquin. I was really never met the guy, but I read everything and I tried stuff and it worked. And I was like, this guy. I really went down that rabbit hole. And then when I started learning from Paul CHEK, if I was to say anybody is that I've met in person, I honestly got to give it to Paul. I got to give it to Paul, because he is an incredible person. And you get a lot of people on the internet who will say this and that, and that's just the way it goes. But I challenge anybody who, looks at Paul and has an opinion about him. I challenge anybody to go really listen to that guy. Like I've spent 7 years of my life like invested into his teachings. I took his HLC twice. I took his HLC 2, his HLC 3, his 4-quadrant mastery coaching, they changed the name of it, but I was taking CHEK exercise coach, CP1, CP2. I took his fungal and healing fungal and parasites. I did Tai Chi for 526 days because he was telling me about achieving a gong, which is 100 days of Tai Chi. I went deep into Paul's stuff, and he sent me on 100 different other rabbit holes too. Like went from not reading to books to I've read hundreds of books and stuff that I never thought I would be into, like Eastern traditions, philosophies, religions, Christianity, like religions from all over the world. I was never ever in a million years thought that I would be not only like interested, but studying this stuff. And like I said, I practiced Tai Chi. I started meditating. I worked on a farm last summer because he showed me like biodynamic farming, Rudolf Steiner, and agriculture and soil health. And I got to give it to him because he really showed me like, whoa, just blew my doors off with the infinite amount of possibilities of where different things in the world. And so if I was to say there's one well-rounded man, I would have to give it to him. But I will also say there's elements of him that I won't choose to carry forward. It's a lot of strength coaches, mentors, like people that I learn from. I'd be silly to say my father is not a huge impact. My best friend right now, he's one of those guys too. I look up to him. Yeah, I've definitely got some positive male roles. And I don't know if it's not necessary for everybody, but I grew up in a small town. I grew up driving, like we were in cornfields. Like it was the country, is really simple living. And I hold a big piece of that really close to my heart and always will. I went down a lot of rabbit holes and my friends were like, ties the guy out in left field. I distanced myself from everybody for a bit there. Like it's because I had to go explore this path, but yeah, it's quite a few now that I sit here and think about it. It's quite a few.
That's great, man. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it sounds like you've really explored all the dimensions of life, and sometimes a teacher who's done the same opened up all of the doors and explored it is an easy portal in, or like a big gifting tree for people to go to. And yeah, they've got all these answers, all these dimensions. I grew up in a country town as well in the Southern Highlands, so mountain country, New South Wales. And yeah, not huge diversity of people, lots of country farmer types, can be a little bit backwater at times. And the few exceptional people in that town like always stood out. Yeah, I went to a Steiner school, which was actually there for 4 years. One of the teachers there, Benjamin Sherry, he was the principal of the school. And he had this radical presence that was just outlandish. He would get everyone to line up out the front of the classroom, for instance, and greet them by shaking their hand as they walk in. He'd look you dead in the eye and be like, "Good morning, Tyler." And you'd be overwhelmed by his quirky presence. And then when all the kids would sit down, he'd ask everyone to smile from the top of their heads before anything started, before any work was done. You had to smile from the top of your head. And there's these characters that stand out in life, and you don't always know what's made them how they are, but you know that they've gone off the beaten track because they're just not like everyone else around them. So tell me.
I was gonna say, because I'm thinking about that when you asked me who my role model's been, and it's really crazy how many of them were from courses that I took. And back to I said ADHD, but I've never been diagnosed, but when I hear a lot of people talk about ADHD, and I might be wrong for saying this, but I'm always like, why are you saying that? It's a different mind. It's a different way of using your mind. And I think You might not feel like it conforms to the way that kind of society is run with, but humans aren't. That's not how we operate. We like the whole hustle hard and grind and blah, blah, blah. It's okay, cool. But you're silly if you think that you're just always going to do, you just can't. You can't. And I really think that I was just fortunate enough I didn't even understand that, but I just took the leap early because I think if I worked like a 9 to 5 job at a desk, like I would be so antsy. I got way too many questions. I got way too many things that I need to explore. So I think that mentality of, I don't know, I just never really, I was like, nah, like the normal life or like the things that people just do. I was like, that's just not for me. I don't think. Like the thought of, yeah, sure, I could get a job that pays well and blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, I don't know. Like for me, there wasn't like the exploration factor was missing in that. And I think that because I had so many questions and because I had so much of an adventurous spirit and I want to explore and as soon as I got exposed to these things that I was just like, wow, I've never thought about that before. I was just like, there's no way I can turn back now. And I think that a lot of times that first step can be scary and then you don't. But when you die, you don't regret the things you did. You regret the things you didn't do. And I think, like I say, I was just reflecting on the fact that a lot of my mentors came from courses. And I think about the people who maybe their limiter is, oh, but it costs money, or oh, but I can't make my hobby an actual way of making an income. And like it's just BS. Like it's just a limiting belief. And listen, if you have a family you need to support and you've got kids that you need to feed and that's going to be a hell of a lot harder. But if you're like a 16, 17, 18, under 25-year-old guy listening to this and you're working a job that you're not really into, it pays decent, you don't really love it, and there's this thing that you want to do but you're scared, put this podcast on pause and go get it. Like honest, just go because it will open up so many doors for you that are so unpredictable. If I tried to predict my career so far, no way. I wouldn't have even came close.
Yeah.
Not even close. I was like, maybe I'll train a professional hockey team. And like, now I'm like, no, thanks. Like I'm so in another world but I never, ever in a million years could have predicted that I would have met these people or been introduced to these ideas or reading these types of books, or never in a million years. I could not have guessed it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can really resonate with everything you're saying. What would you say to the parent out there, mom or dad, who's got a teenage son, for instance, could be a daughter too, and they're worried about them. They're worried they don't have direction. They don't know what they want. They seem to be interested in partying or social media, just distracted. What do you say to that parent that's got a level of concern and doesn't know where to place it?
To be completely honest with you, I'm really hesitant to give an answer because I feel like I don't have kids. So I feel like I'm not really in the position to answer that. But here's what I do know based on just myself and my parents. As a parent, I really hope that you absolutely love your kid. I really hope you're in a place with yourself that you're able to give a lot of love and you want to protect your kid. And that's awesome. But I was a very rebellious spirit, very rebellious. Like my dad, like I said, my dad was a small town guy. So we had 16 concert speakers in our basement. He grew up a partier. He played was obsessed with men's fastball. Like he liked to party. He liked to have fun. I think he's AC/DC's biggest fan. Like I grew up and I adopted that. That's a piece of me that it's just always going to be dear to my heart. Like I am that guy. I know how to hang out with those guys. And there was a time in my life where I thrived at it. But looking back, that was how I found a way to connect with my dad. It was partying. And then just because of my nature, I was like, how far can we push this? And then the next thing you know, parents are picking me up from jail, or parents are picking me up from sketchy situations, or I'm hanging from a rafter in the middle of a party doing as many pull-ups as I can before I jump off. Just ridiculous stuff. But my parents were very concerned. But that's good that you're concerned. You should be concerned for your kid, but it's really hard. But I think you gotta be able to take a step back and allow them to do it. Because here's the thing. I don't know if this is true for everybody, but it's certainly true for me. If you tell me you're not allowed to do this, maybe this is changing. Yeah. Maybe this is changing as I mature a bit, but as I was younger, and probably even still a little bit now, I don't think I'm fully over it. Is you tell me I can't do it, now I got to find out why. Why can't I do it? What's going to happen to me? And sometimes I try stuff and oh shit, you were right. And other times I try stuff and I'm like, I can do that. It's fine. And it's like, parenting is probably I think it's not probably. Parenting is the hardest thing ever because you have a perspective of your mistakes, of your things you learned growing up. And then you have this kid that you changed their diaper. If you didn't feed them, they wouldn't be here. So you have this responsibility and you have this deep love and you just want them to be okay. You just want them to be safe and protected. But at some point, it's got to be the hardest thing in the world, but you got to let off. You got to let off, and you got to trust that what you did from right out the womb to 14, 15, 16, however old they are, you got to trust that it was good enough. It was good enough because kids are smart too. Like they pick up on it. Like I have a family, really close family friends, and their daughter's 5 years old. And I'm telling you, man, she knows everything that's going on. Like she knows what she's doing. It's hard for me to say, here's what I would do. But the one thing I would say is I think you really got to make an effort to understand your child. You really got to make an effort to understand why they're doing things that are getting them in trouble or why they're doing that are helping them and the conversation would be like this. Instead of saying, I told you not to do that, or why do you always do that? The conversation would be like, listen, when you do that, it makes me feel like this. And if your answer is it makes me feel angry, dig deeper. Because when the kid knows that you're able to be vulnerable and you're able to tell them, when you do this, it makes me feel, I get nervous that you're gonna XYZ. And you're not telling them that to change what they're doing. You're not saying it like strategically so that you can trick them into not, you got to throw that out the window. But if you can tell them how you feel honestly and be vulnerable with them, and remember that this isn't a 1-year-old anymore. This is they might not look like adults, but they're formatively becoming adults.
Yeah.
So you got to be real with them. And they got to know that you're able to be real with them. And I think that if you can connect with them and be vulnerable with them and talk to them like you would your partner. I think that, and then you take your hands off the wheel because there's no more you can do. And I think that's the hard part. So that's what I would say is connect with them vulnerably, tell them how you're actually feeling, but don't tell them with the intention of trying to get your way.
That's really good advice. Yeah. From everything that I think as well is we're trying to lead children and lead them to their own truth by adding that perspective, but not driving the perspective home to become theirs or something like that. Yeah, I think that's really good advice to parents. And I don't have children either, but I think people of our age, people of our interests, and I'm saying mine and yours in this instance, of people who are interested in how humans develop, what holistic health is, how to live a good life, and are now on the other side, just on the other side of childhood, essentially. And we're 30, but we've traveled through that threshold now of becoming an adult. And it can take a little while for boys to become men, especially in our day and age where it's not systematized. There's no initiation rituals. You got to get out there and find your mentors. They might just be in books or courses rather than around you. They're not going to come to you and be like, all right, Tyler, it's time to become a man. Let's go bush. Just, it either happens or it doesn't. And so I think it's valuable to share this perspective, even though we might not have families or have gone through that process ourselves. We've still been an observer to the elements. We knew what worked for us, what didn't work. And now we're trying to pay it forwards a bit. So when parents have a family, they're time poor. They don't have all the energy or time in the world. Unless they manage their time effectively, sometimes things like their own personal care go out the window. They're not working out anymore. They've lost the inspiration to move, this sort of thing. What would you suggest to that busy parent, even the busy teacher, how to bring movement into their life in a sustainable way and not be overwhelmed by the fact of, oh, I've got to go to the gym, or I've got to go running, or I've got to do X thing or I've got to go to CrossFit or some, there's a lot of fads out there. I think people get stuck in their heads a lot about what they're trying to achieve, especially if they come from an angle of weight loss, which can be a thing if someone's got the dad bod or the mum bod after going through that early phase of child rearing, and the hyper fixation on got to look a certain way, got to lose X amount of weight, blah, blah, blah. It really disconnects them from the experience of the body. So can you speak around some of those ideas and just shed some light on it all?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen with my own parents, as I was old enough to be consciously aware of what was going on with them, and as I've looked at other people that are very close to me who have families, and I knew them before they had kids, and now I know them after they have kids, I would say that, and I'm going to give specific tools for this, but I would say that I think a lot of people are looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are looking in the wrong place. I think people are looking at, oh, I don't have time to train. Okay. But then because they don't have the time to train, which is not even like an excuse. Like, you literally might, if you got 3 kids, like, you might not have time to train, and you have full-time jobs and whatever, like, you might not. And, but if you stop there, then it becomes like you're defeated. Right. So I don't have time to train. So what is the point of anything? And then you start, like, maybe you drink more because it makes you feel good, or you start eating crappy because it's just whatever. Like, it's James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. He talks about that. You can stack habits, but it also goes the other way. If you start creating good habits and you stack them on top of each other, it's a lot easier to maintain them, but it also goes the other way. So if you're not going to work out, well, now I'll have the bag of chips. Now I'll smoke the pot. Now I'll have the drink before bed. Now I'm going to stay up late and watch some more Netflix. It becomes a really, like, a slippery slope. And if you're battling with maybe what in the mirror was different before than it was before you had kids, and you're not really liking the result, and you're beating yourself up because you can't work out, I would say you're looking in the wrong arena. I think that the number one tool that I have developed, and I don't have kids, but it's still played a massive role in my life, and it's gotten me through by far the hardest points in my life, is stress management. And stress management, it looks different for everybody. Stress management for one person might be 3 1-hour yoga classes a week where they just go in and they're guided and they're connecting with their breathing and they're Stress management for another person might be like a dedicated nature walk, for a big 3-hour walk in the woods with no phone and no stimulus, just alone. Those are great tools. There's like a whole thing they have in Japan. It's called Shinrin Yoku. It's called forest bathing. And when people get sick, they just take them into the forest. So that can be stress management for sure. But stress management can also look like nasal breathing while you're on the toilet. Stress management can also look like at a red light, you're just like box breathing. Stress management for some people can look like when you do have a minute, just close your eyes for a second and just like consciously try and slow your heart rate down. Or the concept of the working in from Paul CHEK, you change your breathing to provoke like a parasympathetic response rather than a sympathetic response. There's a lot of tools and a lot of strategies, and it doesn't really take that much time. So if you have no time, the next time you're on the toilet, just spend a minute consciously breathing, closing your eyes, drop your shoulders, let everything just sink towards the center, and just inhale for 4 seconds, pause, exhale, and maybe you might even let out like a vocal like it's so different, but it's the habit. It's the stacking the habits. And I'm telling you, I've seen it over and over again. And I've seen it with my friends, and I've seen it with busy people who run businesses, have kids, have a lot of people who they need to be responsible for and also tend to. And I have watched these people start with something as simple as nasal breathing from their work to daycare. And then you start to see, I can do that too. Okay, you know what? I actually can get a little walk in. Oh, my kids went to bed. They did well at going to bed twice this week. So I actually got in a little, like whatever it is, a breath work session, or maybe just like some quality time with your significant other, like not on your phone, looking into each other's eyes. Like maybe it's a gratitude practice. Maybe it could be so many different things, but it's not, that's what I meant when I said people are looking in the wrong arena, because it's not the thing. It's not the thing. It's not the workout. It's not the thing. It's the act of doing something. And that might be, I've used Tai Chi. I've used meditation. I use writing currently. I've used going to the park and putting a pair of gymnastics rings in the tree and juggling. And I've used a bunch of stuff, but I don't expect everyone to do that stuff. That's just what's worked for me. It's what I enjoy. It's what I've found. It's what I've found to work for me. But it's your responsibility to find the thing that works for you. And you often don't have to search very hard. Like when you're high alert, when you're on high alert, and when you're high stressed, and when you're like, it's a cascading effect. It just builds and it builds and it builds. And the more high alert you are, the more tense you are, the higher those shoulders are towards your ears, the faster your resting heart rate is, the more your brain can't stop thinking, the less creative energy you're going to have. The less likely you are to, when you actually do have a moment, the less likely you are to be able to think clearly about, okay, what can I do? I've noticed that big time. In times of high stress, like I have 2 hours free, but I just spend the whole time like in my head, and then it just makes me even more anxious and more like frustrated and more feel like a failure. I had time, but because maybe I'm dealing with something really stressful, and it takes me out of that space. And that's where it's not the thing, it's the habit. And that might be 30 seconds. It's if you can hold yourself accountable and have the discipline to remember that we're just going to keep pulling back, take little wins when we can, doors open up in very weird ways, like extremely weird ways, like seeming serendipitous or coincidental, but it's not serendipitous and it's not coincidental. It's the way the world works in the background, the part that nobody looks at. There's something operating in the ether or in the background or whatever, however you want to look at it, in between the noises, there is something going on in the world, in the universe, the connection between people. It is going on all the time. And it's very easy in today's world to get disconnected from that. But the more you can have little tools and little practices that bring you back to that, and you actually feel it, then, because there's a difference between, oh yeah, I know that, and whoa. There's a big difference. And when you actually know it, that question you're asking is no longer a question.
Awesome advice, man. That's really great. Yeah, there's so much in there of what you've spoken about. Bringing it to the breath, especially, and then how you ended it there with there's this thing happening between the gaps of the thoughts that we have in life. And that's so true. Like the driving thought might be, got to get to the gym, got to get fit, got to get body in shape, blah, 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 blah. But in between that thing and in the action of you being in a space or having a moment for yourself, that's the thing that we really want, is the presence. We want the presence with ourself connected to the other presence of life, actually separated from the mental noise or the chatter or the story about what it is that we're there for. What it is that we're there for is actually connecting to something greater than ourselves, feeling greater feelings than we had before, and stepping into a space where we can actually feel connected to something bigger, deeper, stronger, more joyful than whatever's banging around in our head. I think that's so true. So what other great advice do you have for people out there, and what's been banging around in your head?
I wanted to say this as you were talking there, is our culture and our society is very, like, we are very go. We measure our success by quarterly earnings. We measure our success by our net worth. We measure our success by how many people our business has reached. How big our house is, what car we drive, and I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I'm not a person that's get rid of all your possession. I don't think that at all. I think that I've been to places where it's not like that. And trust me, I had a big desire to, oh my God, Canada's amazing. I like my life, so I'm not in that boat of it's all bad. I don't think it's bad. I think it's it's incredible. But we are very much in a society, and I'm going to go to a place here, but we are, as individuals, like, we are a part of a collective. We don't operate as our own little dots that are our own little universes. Like, we are part of a collective. So we are influenced by the collective. And these are the things that you're probably not aware of. And one way to actually measure this is wear a heart rate monitor. Wear a heart rate monitor when you're walking through the woods. Check what your heart rate is, and then wear a heart rate monitor when you're walking down the street of a busy city. Your heart rate is higher walking down the street in the busy city, and you're not walking faster. You don't have more weight that you're carrying. Your body is it is hyper aware, and it just happens. It's not something that we can control it, but we got other things to focus on. We're not walking. It just happens.
Yeah.
And not only that, we're other people's energy and other people's stuff that we can't see. It influences us. And it's we are in a society full of that, which is fine. But I look at it from my profession, and that's fitness, and that's holistic health. And I should preface by health and fitness are not the same thing at all. Well, for the sake of conversation, we'll say it is. But if you look at if you look at the way we build gyms and the way there's a group fitness club and you go there and the way the sessions are structured, it's no wonder. Like, it is an exact representation of the society and the culture. It's fast-paced, loud music, big beats, go hard, more reps, more sweat, more burn, more. That's what it is. And that's what exactly. And it's great. I crush myself weekly with stuff like that. It's amazing. But because we're so influenced by the collective, in our little minds, we think that's the only way to do it. And it's not even frigging close. Like, I did a lot of traveling, and I was had a really, like, a lot of excellent times and great people in Europe. And that really opened my eyes, because I was like, whoa, this is not the same at all. You can still find that stuff there for sure. But even like the people that I study from with courses, like it is a very different, like a whole different narrative when it comes to movement culture. Is just, that is very much kind of European, slower pace. We take breaks in the middle of the days to have naps. We sit down to drink our coffees. It's a totally different culture, and the exercise and the fitness reflects that. But we don't see that. So if you're just a person, you've been in the Canada, the States, or Australia or whatever, and you're busy, you've got, your biggest thing is you wish there was more time in the day or whatever it is. And then you're going to tack on, in order to be healthy, I got to do fitness. And like, you're pouring from an empty cup. It's so no wonder why that seems unappealing, because there's a part of your soul or a part of your body that is the exact opposite direction that we need to go.
Yeah.
And I wish if I could snap my fingers when it comes to the field of work that I'm in, I wish that there was like something that I could do to just rain this different perspective on other people and show them how you don't need to crush yourself in a workout 3 times a week to be healthy. In fact, that might actually drive you the other way. It might make you gain weight. It might make you more stressed. It might make your sleep shittier. It might make your relationships worse. Change your perspective. Don't just do more of what you already have. Like, there's a lot of, and if you want to see some really crazy stuff, I like some of what's his name, like Joe Dispenza's got some crazy stories about people coming to his seminars and having like very chronic diseases they've battled with their whole lives, and they've never found answers. And they sat down and meditated in a large group of people, again, coming back to like how the collective influences of us, where all the energies are like synchronized to one common goal. And within a week, 180 switch. It's like, people, there is a whole nother perspective. There's a whole nother a realm of possibilities. And if you're too absorbed in the hustle and the bustle and the go, it's like you're gonna miss it all. But that's the one thing I just wish people could see, is like, there's a million other answers if you just look in a different place.
Hell yeah. So it's not all no pain, no gain.
Yeah, no, man. Hell no. It's just a tool. It's a tool. And there is a type of personality, 100%. There is a type of personality that when I see them, I'm like, you need more of that. You need more of 6 minutes on the rower. How many meters can you get? You need more of some HIIT training. Yeah, you need to, like, have you ever tried to lift a weight for only 3 reps as much as you can? That's what you need. And then there's the people where it's
just sit down, man. Just sit
down. Yeah, you want a hug? And the crazy part is the continuum we talked about earlier is you can look at it, oh, why is it always like this? Or you can look at it as, it's so obvious, but you don't see it as like typically what you feel like. If you're a person who's, I hate meditation, or I hate yoga, or I hate working out, Guess where you probably need to spend more time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, I'll tell you a story about
Yeah.
like one of my clients right now. I met this person and I could tell right away. A lot of people don't understand that let's say they come in with a weight loss goal. And the first thing I think is stress management. That's what we need to work on. If you know the people like, oh, the stubborn belly fat, guess what'll do that to you? High cortisol
Stress
all the
management.
time.
Yeah.
High chronic cortisol
Yeah.
will do that to you. It's so when I see someone who's they're exercising or they're whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I always look to stress management, and it's as a coach, you can't take the person who's type A go and be like, okay, we're gonna meditate. That's not what they came for. They came for workouts, so you better give them a workout, but you better also know how to be the scientist and the artist and sprinkle that stuff in because they don't know it. They don't know they need it, but that's why they're paying me money. That's
Yeah.
why they're paying me money. They're being like, they got their hands up. I need help. And if I just give them more of what they've already tried, even though they think that's what they need more of, we know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I had a client today who, yeah, like amazing person, like so spunky, so full of fire. And we crush workouts. Like she's doing so great. And at the end of today, I could tell she's a little sniffly. And at the end of our session, I led her like a visualization. And the visualization was basically because I could notice, I was like, you're getting sick, aren't you? She's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell. And she's like, okay. She didn't want to admit it. Then I walked her through this visualization. I was like, okay, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine that you've got all these cell like figures and they're just hanging out. They're all scattered everywhere. Some of them are sitting on the couch. Some of them are watching Netflix. Some of them are on a walk, playing cards, whatever. I was like, I want you to imagine they all have a little army hat and it's sitting beside them. And now I want you to blow the whistle. I want you to call all of them in. And I had her basically take like her immune system,
Nice.
who was just chilling, didn't know Brent was present, and bring them all together into a huddle. And your job, you know what you got to do. And then this went off. It was probably about 10 minutes. And then
Yeah.
walked away in their teams and their groups that they needed. They knew what job they needed to do. And then it was just her in the middle. And then I walked her through. I was like, okay, today we're gonna focus on we're gonna give your body good food. We're gonna make sure we get good sleep tonight. We're gonna during your workday when you feel yourself getting tense, you're gonna take a breath and relax. Everybody needs to be on board right now to make sure that we're doing all the things and we're going the extra mile to make sure that our body is in a place where we can repair, we can heal. We've been pushing it with work and exercise and life. And now we've just gotten this little sign that we just need to slow down, take a step back. And it was just like, yeah, it's actually the first time I've ever led somebody through a visualization like that. But I was like, oh yeah, they have army hats and I'm going to do this. And I'm sitting there and I just knew, I was like, this feels so right.
That's awesome, man.
But it's just, I don't know. Like, I think because I've experienced so many of those perspectives and I came from a family, we ate fast food. We eat meditation. What are you talking about? Like, no, I know how to breathe. If I didn't know how to breathe, I'd be dead. That's my parents. And I've been exposed to so many different perspectives and put myself in so many situations that were like terribly uncomfortable and or holy crap, am I actually in this situation right now?
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to. But I just feel like we all get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life. And if I can just sprinkle these little, throw these little odd little things that you never would have thought of or you never would have actually did. If that's just what makes me feel fulfilled. That's what I'm doing.
That's good, man. You're sprinkling that magic everywhere you go. And yeah, I wish I had that magic wand as well that you were speaking about before, where, the busyness that people get caught up in, there's another world going on, guys, and you don't necessarily have to drive yourself to all of the things that you think are the right things. There's something in between those ideas that's often the best thing. So it's good to team up with someone like Tyler, who can bring a bit of magic into your life, share a few perspectives from the journey. And yeah, I highly recommend anyone reach out to him. You're in Quebec, but you do distance sessions as well for health
Yes.
coaching, or you prefer it
Yeah,
to be in person?
so I have like in-person stuff, but honestly, like 90% of my attention and my energy is going into online right now, just
Yeah.
because it was actually a big hurdle I had to get over. I was like, am I really gonna do this? But it's so much more effective. It's like it's cheaper for the person than it is in person than it is to do in person. You're more flexible on your own schedule. You have access to your coach within 24 to 48 hours to answer every message. You can send form checks whenever you want. Your nutrition's covered. And you're part of a growing community. It's so much better for both sides. And it opens up, like, I'm really planning right now, like, how can I structure my business and my income stream so that when I do have kids, I can be present for them. And I'm not the dad that's, yeah, the roof's over your head and the food's on the table, but pops isn't here. I
Yeah.
want to. So that's kind of, yeah, why I'm one of the big reasons why I'm have my business and continue to push on. And yeah, you can work with me. People can work with me online. And actually, one that's totally free that I will do a shameless plug here is my Substack. So I have content, lots of content on Instagram that's free, and obviously you can check it out. And then I also have a Substack, which is where I do a lot of my writing, and my writing it's really special to me. It's stuff that I just don't really know how to say, or I don't even know if Instagram is the place for it. So it's really just a lot of messages from the heart and some long-winded articles about my story and my things that I just get hit with and want to express some creativity in that regard. And yeah, so I'd like to, if you're listening to this and you do want to check out the Substack, maybe we can post a link or something in the.
Yeah. No, I'll post your Instagram, your Substack, whatever links you want to hook up, they'll be down below in the show notes.
Cool.
And if you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, give us a
Yeah.
man. Thanks for coming along. It's been a great chat. I ask everyone on this podcast what their wish is for the future generations of this earth. So take it away.
My wish is that we slowly start to get back to more of a true community type society and more of a supportive type society where we're not where you talk to your neighbor and you have family over for holidays and you say hi to strangers and you work together, and it's not everyone's just got their head down and spends 60, 70 years of their life so busy on achieving their thing, and then when they get older they realize that, oh damn, we should have what really matters is the people around us. And I just wish that, I feel like that would make the world a much better place for future generations if we can start to instill that sense. The people around you are the most important thing and the most valuable asset. And really go that extra mile and do something kind for a person that may not expect it, or say hi to your neighbor or wave at people when they're walking down the sidewalk, and just simple things like that, man. I don't think it needs to be too complicated. Just start there.
I'd like to see that world also, man. And I think, yeah, we need to bring back the old school, those
For sure.
traditional values of respect and love thy neighbor, and yeah, spend time with family, do things that connect our communities together, because that's a place where we want our children to grow up. So yeah, totally resonate with your message.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you very much for having me. This was a great experience, man.
Awesome, Tyler. Yeah, thanks for coming on. And until next time, everybody, life rocks.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Rocks podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then leave us a review. We'll be back soon with more inspiring content, and in the meantime, remember, life rocks.